Hi, everyone. Happy Tuesday. Welcome to this week's weekly live attorney chat here at Immigration for Couples. I see we have a lot of people already joining us here live, so that's great. If you are new to our firm and new to this weekly chat, welcome. We're really happy to have you. Again, our firm is Immigration for Couples, and our work in the world is that we are dedicated exclusively to helping couples across the nation and across the world in navigating the U.S. immigration process. I know that going through an immigration journey, I know this having gone through an immigration journey personally with my husband and then having helped over 1,000 couples and navigating the process. I know there's a lot of feelings that come with going through that immigration maze. You know, it can be very stressful, overwhelming, and the unknown. So that is why we host these weekly live chats. So you can have a community where you know that you are not alone, and then support on your immigration journey, clarity. And then also, we do have a free resource center on our website, immigrationforcouples.com. The resource center is very robust, and you can actually download a free chapter of my book. So that's the book that's sitting right there behind me, Navigating Love and Immigration. And on the front cover, those are some of the amazing couples that my team and I have had the pleasure of helping them navigate their journey. There's also resources on how to prove your relationship and the different options that are available to you as you're going through the process. So please check that out. It was created with love, care, and consideration for all of you. And I know Ria just put that in the comments. So I always like to start, if this is your first time, I always like to start by asking, where are you at in the world? Where are you at in your immigration journey? And most importantly, how are you feeling? So I know that I see a couple familiar faces here. Ginger, it's so great to see you. You're watching from the US. That's wonderful. I know you've been letting us know that you've been counting down the days for your next visit to be with your fiance. So that's fantastic. We're happy that you're able to be together, and happy you're here with us today. So I hope you're having a lovely time. Are you getting to do anything fun? What are some of the fun activities you have planned? We'd love to hear about that. Good morning, Michael, here in NYC. Great to have you back with us. Betty, it's so great. Good morning. Good morning to you too. It's so great to have you. You're in Canada. Jesse, good morning to you as well. Where are you at in the world? And if you're willing to share, where are you at in your immigration journey? All right, so you're in the Philippines. That's great. Yay. And Jose, that's so great to have you back with us this week. You're in Houston. You're finally starting to see the light at the end of the tunnel. You have dates scheduled for the medical and interview. That's so wonderful. Congratulations. Jose, I know you have been coming for our live chats for months now. And so I love hearing those updates. I know we all do. We're all supporting you and cheering you on. So that's fantastic. Best of luck. And hopefully you're able to be together in the US very soon. All right. So Terry, it looks like you're probably the first question I think I have here in the queue. And so that's what comes next. This is our weekly live chat where you can ask me your questions. And I will go through the questions in the order that I receive them here today. I am streaming this on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, and Instagram. So I answer the questions in the order I receive them. And Ria, you can let me know, as always, if any questions come through on Instagram, since you're helping me watch there. So Terry, you're our first question here. Let's see. Okay. So, hi, Terry. You said it's been a while. I know you had said you had they had the interview and that you'd been waiting. And I'm very sorry to hear that your mom has passed away. You will definitely be in my thoughts and prayers. I'm really sorry to hear that. And you're 4 months now past that, your husband's second interview. They still have his passport and all of the documents. You still haven't received any word. Is this normal? And then you had another part here to your question. What would be the next steps? Should we just wait and pray? Should we be worried? So that's a big question. Is it normal? I know you've been coming to our weekly live chats for months now. And so I have a general idea of your case, but I don't know all of the specifics of your case, since I haven't, seen all of the details of the immigration history and relationship history. So I can't say that it is or is not normal without knowing those really important details. However, I will say it is normal in some circumstances that a case might take longer because the officer needs to do additional review before they can make a final decision. So it could be normal. And I know we've talked about this before, where some of the options you have are to reach out to the embassy directly. Typically, they have a navigator tool or a way to communicate with them. It doesn't always work. They don't always respond, but that's a good place to start. And then reaching out to your representative. So you can use the Find My US Representative tool. Typically, US representatives, your senator, your congressional representative, have a assistance with a federal agency tool, is usually what it says on their website. And you can reach out to them for support. They can't influence the decision of your case. They can't tell immigration what to do. They can't tell immigration to make a decision faster, but they can help what they call liaise with immigration. It will be a more direct line of communication with immigration to see if they can get any updates for you. Sometimes even going through your congressional representative or senator, sometimes it still is not, guaranteed that you'll get any kind of response, but that's a good next step. From there, waiting and praying and, supporting one another is a really great and very important thing to do for your self-care. Should you be worried? I know you're going to be worried. I can tell you not to worry, but that's just part of the natural, normal feelings that are going to arise when you're going through this journey, is that unknown. Worry, I will say, while it's a natural part of the process and a natural human emotion, it's not something you're going to necessarily be able to get rid of, but it's not going to be productive, right? So I would focus on the things that you can control, reaching out to the embassy, reaching out to your congressional representative, and then supporting one another, you and your husband, focusing on the future, focusing on self-care, whatever that is for you, meditation, walks, all of those things, and taking care of yourselves. Focus on the things that you can control in this moment, and don't lose faith. All right. And I hope you get a decision. I hope you get a decision soon. I know that is really hard, the waiting, but hopefully something will be coming soon for you to have a decision and some finality to your immigration journey. All right. And good morning to you as well. So you have a question here about your K-1 visa interview in Nairobi. Oh, I'm really sorry to hear that. So you had your interview 3 weeks ago in Nairobi, but unfortunately the case was denied because it's a fully banned country. So, and you also have a 5-month-old US citizen baby. My heart breaks for you. The travel ban has just been so incredibly inhumane and illogical. And I really regret to hear that you have received a denial. Again, please don't lose hope. For clients and for individuals rather, who are from banned countries, the fiance visa, while it's not an option right now with that travel ban in place, looking at the spouse visa is something that you should really, really consider at this point, especially when you have a little one. So don't lose hope. There's still options that are available to you, even if that travel ban prevented you from getting through the fiance visa process. And perfect. This is what you're already thinking, what I was saying. So you're already planning on getting married soon and filing that petition. And then you're wanting to know about using that A number. So yes, when you apply for an immigration benefit, if it's your first immigration benefit, typically you'll receive something called an A number, an alien number, your registration number. And then if you have an A number, then in future applications, you are to list that number, because that will help immigration to link your file together. So best of luck to you. Definitely don't lose hope. Keep going, and hopefully you can get that petition filed soon and be in that line. Okay, this is a big question, Abby. Let's see here. I don't think it's going to fit. This is a big question. So give me a minute to read through it. You're filing the consummation evidence for a Utah marriage. Can I file the I-130 petition based on a Utah online marriage and then provide consummation evidence after submitting the application? Or must it be included at the time of filing? Your case was denied at the U.S. Embassy. They did not provide a clear explanation of the denial. How can I request or force the embassy to disclose a specific reason for the denial? Case returned to USCIS. And then and then your question cut off, since it's such a large and actually it's a very complex situation. So there's a couple different things going on here with your question, and I'm going to answer them out of order because the thing that stood out to me the most here is this embassy denial. So that needs to be taken care of before you file any other applications. You're right for wanting to understand the basis of why they denied your case. So I would need to know, what kind of case was it? Was it the first time that you were filing for an immigration application? When and where was the interview? What were the questions that were asked at the interview? What was the evidence that was supplied? It's very important that we get to the root of, why was this case denied before you file anything else? And so you're right for wanting to know that, because if you don't, and then you just go file other applications, if there's this underlying issue that needs to be corrected, sometimes that correction comes in the form of what's called a waiver of forgiveness. And then sometimes there's a period of time you have to wait before filing again. So it's really important to understand, why was the case denied? So typically, if an embassy denies an application, and I'm talking about spouse and fiance visa applications, I want to make that clear, they will give a paper typically at the end of that interview that explains why they're denying the case and what grounds that they're denying the case. Sometimes the reason for denying the case is that they don't believe that there is what they call a bona fide relationship. And then in that situation, then they would return that case to USCIS to revoke that underlying petition. Sometimes there can be issues with, if it's a spouse visa case, that the underlying marriage wasn't actually valid. I see that happen quite a bit. Individuals will come to me, they filed their own case, they thought these prior divorces were completed, and then they got married and filed the spouse visa, but the prior divorces weren't actually completed. And so then the marriage and the spouse visa is not valid. And I'm just giving a bunch of different examples. I'm not saying that any of these are necessarily your particular situation, right? But that's why it's really imperative and important to understand what was the basis of that denial. So typically, if the case is returned to USCIS, USCIS is going to review the decision of that consular officer and decide whether or not the consular officer is correct. If they agree with the consular officer, sometimes there's an opportunity. USCIS will send you this notice of intent to revoke, and you'll have an opportunity to respond. Other times you won't. It just really depends on the type of case and the reason for the denial. So, and then in other situations, the embassy might deny your case, but they wouldn't send it back to USCIS. So sometimes the embassy denies the case because there was a lie in a prior tourist visa application, for example. The person said they were married when they weren't, hoping to increase their chances of getting a tourist visa. Or perhaps the individual had worked in the United States without authorization. Or perhaps, they overstayed a visa in the past. There can be all kinds of issues in your immigration history that can result in the embassy denying your case. And then they give you a paper explaining those grounds, what they call grounds of inadmissibility, for you to then be able to file a waiver of forgiveness. Not all immigration violations have a waiver of forgiveness. So you can see that understand that embassy denial is really important, because we need to understand, is there going to be an opportunity to respond to USCIS? Is this an issue that can be resolved or remedied through responding to that notice of intent to revoke, or is refiling the best next option? So it's a big question to unpack, and I would need, like I said, I would need a lot more details. So the other piece about Utah marriage. So Utah marriages are virtual marriages. So they happen over Zoom. Typically, if you're getting married by a Zoom marriage, I highly recommend that you're together in the same, physical location for that Zoom ceremony. So it's not a proxy marriage that requires what they call the consummation requirement. In some situations, immigration will treat that Utah virtual marriage as a proxy marriage. And so then, yes, providing what they call consummation evidence with the application is something that has to be done. And I have a bunch of videos on that topic. That's a pretty big topic too. Ria can actually throw in, Ria, if you could, there's a few videos I've made on the Utah virtual marriage that you could throw in the comments, for Abby to check out. But Abby, I'm giving you, like I said, some very general information and overview on some of your next steps, but definitely before filing, we really need to get to the heart of what happened with that embassy denial. And then it looks like, oh yeah, and then you had another part about travel bans. So you had a very long question. I did the best I could to, give you some general information. I kind of have blinders on, right, without knowing all of those details that I asked about. But this is something that I'd be happy to speak with you about in private. You're welcome to schedule a consultation if you'd like to do that, and we can talk privately over Zoom or on a phone call in more details about your specific situation and best next steps. All right. But thank you for the question. I'm sure that helped others to really understand more about what happens, if a case is denied. So, all right. Let's see here. So you're letting us know that you're a U.S. citizen married to a UK citizen. You're living as a couple together in Northern Ireland after you immigrated there. And you're about to start the green card process to have him go to the U.S. with you. So that's wonderful. Thank you for sharing all of that. And we're happy to have you with us. You're in a great community here. And if you have any questions, you're welcome to throw those in the comments. Okay, so Jesse, yeah, you had let us know earlier you're in the Philippines, and so you're a widower and you might need help. I believe I remember you had asked a question about widower petitions on our last live. So I'm glad that you're here with us today. All right, so and I start the process for your spouse, if you're a U.S. citizen and you spent time outside of the U.S. more than a year, and you're staying with your wife overseas and you just had a baby. Well, congratulations. That's really exciting. You're wanting to know, can you file now or wait? As long as you are eligible, as long as you both meet all of the eligibility requirements, there shouldn't be anything that would be holding you back from filing. You're able to get started with that process as long as you're eligible. Being outside of the United States, so I just made a video about this, the domicile requirement. I think that's why you might be asking. Is that when you're going through an immigration process as a U.S. citizen petitioner, as a lawful permanent resident petitioner, you have to prove that the U.S. is your domicile, a legal term of art that means it's your home. In fact, the U.S. is where you live. And so it is possible. We have lots of couples who opt to live together outside of the United States while that process is pending, which I think is great if that's something that you're able to do. And then just also understand immigration is going to require additional proof that the U.S. is still your home, proof that you've been filing tax returns, proof that you own property in the U.S. But just because you're living outside of the U.S. doesn't prevent you from moving forward with the application. You just need to make sure you meet all of the eligibility requirements, including domicile. So, but again, congratulations on having a baby. That's really exciting. And definitely Bria had put in the comments the link to the resource center. I have tons of resources about the spouse visa process that I think would be very helpful for you to check out. So great to have you here. All right. So Betty, you're waiting to hear from the National Visa Center. It's a first communication, a welcoming letter, or their instructions as to the next process. Betty, you'll have to refresh my recollection. Is it a fiance visa or a spouse visa? So if it's a spouse visa, you wait for the petition to be approved, and then you'll receive the welcome letter from the National Visa Center with instructions to complete the online process. If it's a fiance visa, the National Visa Center assigns the case number and then transfers the case onto the U.S. Embassy or consulate where the interview will occur. So at that point, they'll give you instructions, but instead of doing that online, you'll prepare everything to take to the embassy interview. So, but either way, the National Visa Center process isn't going to happen until that petition is approved. So, fiance, thank you. So that helps. So yes, once your petition is approved for the fiance visa, then you'll receive an email from the National Visa Center. Right now, that's taking a while, around 2 to 4 months at least. And the National Visa Center assigns the case number and then transfers the case to the U.S. Embassy or consulate. And each U.S. Embassy or consulate has their own unique instructions and specific requirements for what it is you need to bring to the interview, how you schedule the interview, etc. Some countries, you get to schedule the interview after creating an online account. Other countries will schedule the interview for you. So you'll have to wait. Yeah, you'll have to wait for that NVC notice. It does take a minute. All right. You're very welcome. I'm happy that was a helpful response. Good morning to you as well, Maria. It's great to have you with us. All right, and Ria put in the link, so that's fantastic. All right, Annette. So your partner had her K1 interview today, and you were approved. Congratulations! That's very exciting. My question as I look ahead is, if we don't file the adjustment of status until January, and I-864 will ask for most recent tax transcripts, does that mean I need to immediately file my 2025 tax returns, or would sending the transcript from 2024 be okay? Or should we try to get the adjustment of status in December? Thanks for all you do. You're very welcome. All right. So another big question here. So the interview and everything was approved today. That's fantastic that it happened today. So great that you were able to share that with everybody. I hope for those of you who are going through an immigration process, you find inspiration in seeing that Annette is at the finish line. Annette, I'm sure you waited a while to get that decision. So again, thank you for sharing that. In terms of filing the adjustment of status, so once a person enters the United States on a fiance visa, you have 90 days to get married and 90 days to file that green card application. So for our clients, we always, once their fiance visa is approved, we celebrate with them, and then we look ahead. When are you planning on entering? When are you planning on getting married? We need to have that adjustment application ready. We start proactively working on it and having it ready to file as soon as possible, because ideally you want to make sure not only does that marriage happen in the first 90 days, but that adjustment application is filed as well, because you don't want to be in a position where you're falling out of status and then filing your application. So once that adjustment application is filed, you're right. It will depend on the time of year that the application is filed as to which tax return will be required. If you're filing before tax filing time, then the most recent tax return, so in this case, 2024, would be the appropriate tax return that you would be filing. Typically, we send 3 years of tax returns with the affidavit of support. And then what happens is at the start of every year during tax filing time, after April, immigration typically will request the updated tax return at that time through a request for evidence, or they'll have you bring the updated tax return to the interview. So it just really depends on when you're filing. I wouldn't delay filing, waiting for tax return filing in 2025, unless you're still within the 90 days and it's not going to take very long to get the return done. Because otherwise it's just going to be requested as part of the process, either through a request from immigration or having you bring it to the interview. So, all right. So, and Cinnamon Rolls Every Day says, congratulations, Annette. That's awesome. I like the name. Okay. Okay, so, and good morning to you as well. With the affidavit of support for financially supporting the applicant, do the financials have to be in US dollars? We both live in Canada, and my partner and I only have earned in Canada. Okay, so this is going to involve something I talked about earlier with domicile. So the first piece is when a couple is and the US citizen is living abroad and embarking on the fiance or spouse visa process, something immigration is going to look at is whether or not you have domicile in the US, whether or not the US is your home in fact. So they do look for things like, did you file your tax returns in the US? Because you're supposed to do that even if living abroad. And they'll look at, do you own property in the US? Do you have a driver's license in the US? For those who are living in Canada, I know our clients who are living together in Canada, you have to give up, your US driver's license to have a Canada driver's license and vice versa. So you might not have that, but tax returns, financial accounts in the US, that's the first piece of the equation, is that you want to make sure you have that domicile in the US. The other piece is you're asking about with the affidavit of support. So the affidavit of support is the domicile and then your income. Immigration is looking for US earned income. That doesn't mean you can't qualify as the sole sponsor for the case. Some officers will take into consideration foreign earned income so long as there are transferable skills that are, you're going to be able to easily transition to a similar job or a job within the same country or within the same company to the United States. Oftentimes what we have to do for our couples living abroad is looking at financial, looking at assets. So looking at property in the US, looking at bank accounts, things like that. So it's a long answer to say, yes, typically immigration is most focused on US earned income, US tax returns, money earned from a US company. But it doesn't mean that you don't have options. It's just going to make your case a little bit more complex in the manner in which you have to provide, financial documents and assets. So I assume I assume you have some accounts and things like that in the United States. So that should be helpful. Okay. And so then you're also asking about how was the consular processing process out of Canada? My partner and I are thinking of getting engaged, married in 2027. Do I prefer K1 or CR1 cases? I don't prefer one over the other. I think they're both great options. It's really going to be largely dependent on your personal goals. You as a couple, you as individuals. Do you need to be able to work right away when you come to the United States? Do you have obligations abroad that you need to finish up before you can relocate to the United States? Do you need to be able to travel right away? Are there children involved in the application? So it's not a one size fits all. And I'd have a lot of questions for both of you to better understand your situation and your goals, so I can give you customized legal advice about what I think is the best for both of you. I can say that in general, our couples who choose the fiance visa process choose it for speed, because typically the fiance visa, when it was created, historically, it's been a faster option. So typically that's one of the number one reasons couples will choose the fiance visa, because it typically takes about half the amount of time to be able to enter the US. Fiance visas right now here in September of 2025, taking about a year, give or take, especially for our clients from Canada. We see it takes about a year, give or take, for that. Whereas the spouse visa process is taking closer to 2 years. And then on the flip side, couples will choose the spouse visa because they say, you know what, we don't mind waiting extra time because we want to make sure that, when my spouse enters the United States, he or she is able to work right away, travel internationally, and that we don't have any additional applications to file upon arrival. So those who choose the fiance visa, they like that speed, being able to be together in the US faster. There's additional steps once you enter, there's limitations once you enter, but it tends to be a faster option. Whereas, the spouse visa, longer wait, but the ability to enter the US without any additional steps and more flexibility. Okay. Yeah. And so you have a lot of, you're adding some more things about you both being registered nurses. So that's amazing. And she's a US Canada dual and would be the sponsor. So yeah, that's great. That's all very helpful. And I would say, what I shared with you here today are some of those reasons that couples choose one over the other. I'd be happy to meet with you both in private one-on-one during a consultation. If you're wanting to get more customized legal advice, you can check out our free resource center as well. It really is a continuation, expands on what I've shared with you here today. I do an entire webinar that you could check out as well. So Ria had posted those in the comments, but hopefully that gives you some general understanding of things that you're needing to be aware of, like domicile and handling assets and things like that. So, all right. I'm going to be able to do a couple more questions here. Okay, so how long do you have to take action on the National Visa Center once you get the I-130 approval and you want to wait before submitting NVC documents? Is there a time frame on that? Yes, the NVC has a 1-year requirement that you have to make contact with the NVC within 1 year and complete the process within 1 year. There are situations in which you're not able to do that because you're waiting on immigration for a waiver. And so you have to continue maintaining contact with the National Visa Center so they don't close out your case. And then I just want to make sure I was understanding you. Yes. And so what we do in situations where there's a waiver pending or something like that, where we can't take action right away, then we keep in touch with National Visa Center and make sure all of that is memorialized, that we have been reaching out to them several times a year. I don't like to take it all the way up close to that year. I want to make sure they keep that case open and that we don't run any risk of them trying to close the file. So yes, 1 year is the requirement. And you need to make sure you definitely make contact with them before that, or they will close out the case and you'd have to start over, which nobody wants to do that, right? All right. Okay. I'm not sure. Let me see if let me read this question here. Oh, okay, here we go. All right. So Julie, good morning. And you have a big question too, the kind that covers me up. All right. So let's go through this here together. Good morning. You had your adjustment of status interview on September 4th. And Friday, September 5th, you got an email from USCIS that your husband was approved. So congratulations. That's amazing. At the interview, the officer told me to wait in the waiting room and only took your husband and lawyer back. 20 minutes later, they came out and the officer never spoke to you. Next day, we got approved for his green card. I've been watching your videos and live streams for a while. They wanted to say thank you for all you do for everybody. Well, that's very sweet, Julie. Thank you for sharing that with all of us. It's my pleasure. It makes me very happy to hear that you received an approval on your case. That's such a huge relief. We've had so many clients this month receiving approvals at their green card interviews like you, fiance visa approval, spouse visa approvals. And so it just feels amazing to see this movement and these positive outcomes on the cases. I know others have not had the most positive experience that they shared here at the beginning of the show, but hopefully you all will be getting decisions soon. And Julie's message and these updates are giving you all hope to not give up. So thank you for sharing and congratulations again, Julie. That's fantastic. Awesome. You're very, very welcome. I'm glad that was helpful. You had a big question and I know I gave a lot of information. So I'm glad that was clear and was helpful for you. Yay. And Maria is saying congratulations as well. So to you, Julie. So that's fantastic. Maria, thank you very much, Megan, for all your information. This group is a big support to everyone navigating couples through immigration. That's a very sweet. Keep praying and holding on, everyone. Each day since we filed our petition, we're one day closer to the finish line. May God, everyone, and I am praying for our petition approval soon. That's very sweet, Maria. Thank you for sharing that message. It is a wonderful community. So you all know, you're not alone on this journey. And hopefully you all get positive decisions soon. I know waiting can be very difficult. So hang in there, though. All right, everyone. Hi to you as well. Great to have you with us. All right. I do need to go. I know there was a couple questions I wasn't able to get to today, but we did go through a lot. So thank you all for being here. Thank you for your questions. Take care of yourselves, take care of each other, hang in there. Please don't lose hope. I know there's a lot of fear right now. You're very welcome, Julie. I know there's a lot of fear right now, but just focus on the finish line, focus on what you want, focus on your future. And I just can't emphasize enough, take care of yourselves and each other. All right. Hang in there. I will see you all. Will I see you next week? I think I am traveling to represent clients at interviews next week. So we will probably move our weekly live session to a different day next week. So stay tuned. If you are subscribed to the YouTube channel, Facebook, following our Facebook page, If not, do that because then you'll be notified of the time change for the next live event. All right, everyone, take care. Bye.